Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's going on? We'll see if he shows up. I don't know if bowling is this morning or not. But welcome, everyone, to the Watchlist watch party for Wednesday. Um, I know I feel like I have to come in here with some kind of level of energy and excitement and maybe even a little happiness, but there's really not much of that for the things that we're going to talk about. Sorry to start off that way, with that kind of negativity, but we do live in the United States of America under a dictatorial regime that's trying to continue to take away our rights, our power, and quite simply our lives. It's just the way this thing is shaking down to, and the more that we deny that, the more that they have the freedom to do all of that right in front of us, say it to us, and everyone just applauded as it happens. It continued after this stupid ass bill then passed the Senate with all kinds of changing and pushing back and forth and a couple of amendments and actually making it worse. That was already reported before, but I'm upset about that. But we'll get to that in a second because there's a lot going on. I got multiple things to talk about. Already jumped in 10 minutes late, so I apologize for that. But you know what? I wanted this space to be something that was a little bit more relaxed. I didn't have to be on such time crunches and oh my God, I'm 2.5 minutes late. Those were the parameters of the live show that was tough. This is supposed to be the fun part about it. So I'm gonna say hi for a second. What's going on, Christina? What's going on, Dragon Shepherd? Dexter Wong, first to jump in. Good morning to you as well, brother. Miss Anonymous 617. She says it's going to be this way for years. Well, I mean, I don't think they plan for it to be this way for years. They plan for it to be this way for a short amount of time for them to destroy everything, and then it's going to be another way for years. Um, but I understand what you're saying. That is the point of this whole thing. As Democrats still try to position themselves for an election. Okay. Allison Odd, good morning to you as well. Night Eater. Did he walk? So we're going to find out. Maybe that's the next part about this whole administration's plans. Grumpy Cat, how you doing as well? Glad to see you guys. Joel Zaleo Kilo. It's all in one word, so I'm sorry I can't make out the name really fast. But what's up, Mr. Johnson? You were afraid that I was not going to make an appearance today. I love you too, brother. I'm here. We got a lot to talk about. Just want to acknowledge you guys for showing up again. Thank you for being here on a Wednesday. Let's jump right the F on in. As you guys know, the big, stupid, beautiful, bad, destructive bill passed the Senate. It's going to go back down to the House now for them to make some other changes to it. Potentially, many of them are not happy, but there's one senator that voted in favor of this bill that also isn't happy. I'm not sure if you guys know who this was, but it was this lady here that
out there. Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh my God.
That's what Senator Paul said.
Is this an intimidating stare?
We've got the.
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. I work hard to take care of a state that has more unique situations, more unique people, and it's just different. And so when people suggest that federal dollars go to one of our 50 states in a, quote, bailout, I find that offensive. I advocated for my state's interests. I will continue to do that, and I will make no excuses for doing that. Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that we moved through an artificial deadline, an artificial timeline to produce something to meet a deadline rather than to actually try to produce the best bill for the country. But when I saw the direction that this is going, you can either say, I don't like it, and not try to help my state, or you can roll up your sleeves.
That's Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. First off, walked up to the reporter and had a stare down with him because he asked her, Rand Paul, your fellow Republican, basically said you sold out for this bill. Because, by the way, as I read, Vice President J.D. Vance had to come in and break the tie. Also, Lisa Murkowski had to be one of the Republicans to vote on board to make it one of those 50-50 ties where the vice president has to come in and break the tie, obviously, and vote in favor of the Republican bill. So that's what happened. I mean, I'm not sure about the forcing that she was talking about, but I'm gonna go through a few of the things that she said really fast. By the way, she's supposed to be some kind of maverick, but about being part of the party where she also thinks independently and doesn't always go along with those realms, but she always does. Her and Susan Collins. But she was offended by the talk of a bailout coming for her state because, by the way, she was bribed into voting for this for a small giveaway to some folks in her state, as she also complained about how this bill, she openly said it, she doesn't like it, and she knows that there are a lot of Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill. And she doesn't like that. She doesn't like it, but she'll still be the one to help it happen. I don't like that I'm destroying your life, but you know what? I kind of had to destroy your life. Just one of those things I kind of had to do because she saw the direction that this was going on, this artificial timeline for this artificial deadline, but she still had to do it. She saw where it was going. Where it was going was actually, if you voted against it, was going against it. And if other folks had any kind of guts, it would also be against it if it's going against it. And if that July 4th deadline is an artificial timeline, why are you following it? Here's the same lady who talked about issues with the president and how actually they have to push back against him. She did say that. I want to go to that part because that's something else I want to get to her on about what it is that she sold out for. But first, let's talk about things that she told Katie Couric before about the way the Republicans are supposed to act towards this president. This is the reasons why some people thought maybe Lisa Murkowski would be one of the people who does something different. This is how she talked about what Republicans should be doing as this guy spirals out of control and does anything the hell he wants.
I don't mean to be pushy. Here I am
Yeah.
in your living room, Senator, but I don't feel like you really answered the question. Do you think he's more dangerous? Yes, he is taking, more liberties. He's pushing the envelope. Do you think it's dangerous what he's doing?
It could be dangerous if the Congress decides, if the Republican majority in the House and Senate decide that the ends justifies the means, and we're good with the goals, and so we're okay with how he is utilizing emergency powers. If we are okay without checking him, then I think yes.
Well, they haven't exactly done that. They haven't exactly
No,
checked
they've turned to the courts, haven't they?
I mean,
haven't they?
Congress, I mean, I don't see a lot of profiles in courage. I don't see a lot of people challenging him. And you say isn't that happening already?
We are not. I would rather challenge us in the Congress to assert our role and our responsibility than to just condemn the actions of the president and get nowhere. Yes, you are the president. Yes, you are the executive, but we are the check. We have to be the check. We have not been the check, in my view.
Congress has to be the check. They have not been the check in Lisa Murkowski's view. So therefore, Lisa Murkowski needing to be the check on the president, who she said would be out of control if Congress didn't exercise their check over the executive and do something about it. As she then goes and says, I hate everything that he's doing, but I have to keep doing it because I'm not a check on this president who's now out of control. So if she's okay with them not checking him, but also against everything he does, why is she there? Why is she there at all? She says all the right things, as we always hear politicians always say to us. This is the land of opportunity. If you can, if you work hard and put your head down and really burrow forward, you're going to make it in this country. Apparently not. I mean, the problem is too many people that have experienced that lie already knew that. And every time they said that, they apparently hate America. Not the people who set up to destroy the people who live here, pay taxes, and are citizens here, and actually make the country as decent as it is. Not those people. Those people are against the country because they find that there's something wrong and they'd like to fix it because their elected representatives are supposed to do that for them. We have it completely upside down and backwards. But when is she going to assert that responsibility over the executive that she was just talking about with Katie Couric? I mean, that was a few weeks ago. So, I mean, I guess things changed. What changed was what they then tried to, or not even tried, what they said they would give her for her troubles. They tossed it in there. Representative Neguse here, Joe Neguse, Democrat, talked about the things that Lisa Murkowski, reasons why she straight up sold out. Again, also Rand Paul said so.
I think you're missing one.
Which one is that?
Whalers.
What's that?
A new tax break for whalers, right? Am I?
Are you talking about allowing someone who
Fishermen.
uses a harpin to deduct the cost of that harpin?
Correct.
That's included. It's a business expense.
It's a new tax break,
It's
right?
a business expense that was capped at $10,000 and now they can deduct it.
Up to $50,000, right?
Yes.
Yes. Why was that added? If we all know.
You would
right?
have to talk to the senators.
I'd have to talk to the senators. I don't know. It was kind of convenient, Chairman Smith, that was the one addition that you omitted from that list you provided. But I think I would
probably more that I.
well, that may be the case. I think it's emblematic of the broken process that the Senate engaged in. That as we go through this 900-page bill, we will find a variety of different provisions that different senators inserted for their own purposes. And of course, one of them was this whaling tax deduction for the 160 or so people that will be able to claim that in the state of Alaska, so that one of the senators from Alaska would feel comfortable voting for the bill. I don't think that that's, in my view, the way this process should unfold.
Representative Joe Neguse pointed out that Lisa Murkowski sold out and voted in favor because they told her that she gets this tax credit for 160 whalers and their harpoons, I guess, that the guy that was explaining it said harpins. I'm not sure. I'm not in the whaling industry. But apparently something like people were speculating they meant harpoons. Either way, it was a business tax, and there's this level they can get up to. That's what they gave her. That's what she said she had to look out for the people of her state in order to sell out the entire rest of the country in order to get. That's what they gave her. And therefore, she had no choice. Her hands were tied. That was the basis for the reasoning for her vote. As she, talks about being a check on the president, who would, of course, be out of control if not for the Congress. And so they passed it on down to the judges, right? Isn't that crazy? They just try to get the judges to do something about it. We're going to get to more judges later. But there was actually a better reason. Besides that whole thing about the 160 whalers that get an extra tax break for this legislation, there's another aspect that Lisa Murkowski told us months ago is actually the reasons why she's so afraid. The reasons why she's so afraid of doing anything that has maybe anything to do with the people that voted for. I'm sorry, outside of those 160 whalers who probably have worse things happen in their lives because of her vote, despite that tax break that she gave them. This is the real reason why Lisa Murkowski is doing what she's doing.
We're in a time and a place where I don't know. I certainly have not. I have not been here before. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice, because retaliation is real, and that's not right. But that's what you've asked me to do. And so I'm going to use my voice to the best of my ability. And sometimes it will be viewed in a way that, well, that's pretty confrontational. And other times it's going to be using my mother's charm that I learned as a young girl.
She gets anxious because of that whole thing with retaliation. with a guy in the White House who uses retaliation as a tool against the scared people like her to do his bidding. Okay. At least she told them. This was months ago during her town hall. She talked to her constituents, and apparently she gets anxiety over having to do something. Hey, I have a good idea. If you have too much anxiety over doing your job, don't show up to work anymore. Resign. Take your ass back home. It's very simple. Yo, think about how people work at McDonald's, bro. You'd be like, listen, I can't do the fryer. Tell the supervisor, I can't work the fryer. You know, sometimes it pops out, and I get a little anxiety over that. Sorry. Okay, we'll put you on register. But you know, the buttons on the register are kind of dirty. You know how many people have touched that? I'm a bit of a germaphobe. I'm afraid of the germs on that. Okay, fine. Clean the outside, clean the tables. I think I saw a little kid over there. He had a little bit of a puking session. I don't really want to touch that. You remember, I'm a germaphobe. Eventually, your ass gets fired from McDonald's for not doing the job. But for some reason, when you make tons of money as a U.S. Senator for years, you can be afraid of doing the job, and you can tell your customers, your constituents that. And when you do it, it's just supposed to be accepted as you go along and continue to screw things up. This is a bigger job than just working McDonald's. At least they can get someone else to work the damn fryer, or you can go down the street to Burger King, wherever the hell else you may work. Maybe work at Subway so you don't have to work with the fryers. But as a U.S. Senator, you destroy other people's lives because you're supposed to represent their positions. But instead, she's afraid of doing her job. And then where she gets some courage, where she stands up strong, is when a reporter asks her, why you're not doing your damn job. Isn't that weird? I got so much more to talk about. So I'm done with Lisa Murkowski. A lot more to talk about, but I'm done with Lisa Murkowski. There's a couple folks that are speaking out and speaking up. One of those folks is Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy is upset. He's been upset about this entire administration since the beginning. He was talking about their nominees. I'm not sure how many ones he voted against. I'm sure he probably voted for some of them that are destroying the country as heads of these cabinets. But he's been speaking out. He's been talking actionable about things that he wants to do and has been trying to do. So I give Chris Murphy a lot of credit. Democrat Chris Murphy from Connecticut. He had a response to this whole thing and how it went down. Let's start there.
I am shaking with fury over what just happened. That's the most monstrous piece of legislation I've ever voted on in my time in Congress. What do those Republican senators go back and tell their constituents that they did? In the final speech, the only thing they mentioned was the money for the border. But what more can they do? They've already militarized the border. They've already created an immigration police state. They didn't mention anything about the fact this bill kicks 17 million people off of their health care. There are going to be thousands of people who die in this country because they lose their access to health care. There'll be tens of thousands of other lives that are needlessly destroyed. This is the biggest cut in child nutrition in the history of the country, I think. There are going to be moms and dads who literally watch their children go hungry. And why? Because they wanted to pad the pockets of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago friends. That's the only reason that they are throwing people off of healthcare, that they are rendering little children hungry so that some billionaire can get an extra $200,000 tax cut. It's just repulsive what they did. Now, it hasn't passed the House. There is a small but not insignificant chance that we can stop this bill before it gets to the president's desk. So let's get to work. Let's keep fighting. Let's not give up. Even if it does pass the House, then we have to tell the world what they did. We have to make sure that every single senator, every single congressman who voted for this from a swing state or a swing district never sets foot in this building again. This is a moral abomination, what they just did. And for what? For what? Just to make the lives of the rich and famous a little bit easier?
It doesn't even do that.
So we'll do our work. I'm not giving up. I'm going to do everything I can to stop this bill from passing the House of Representatives. And it has real issues as it heads to the House of Representatives. But if it does become law, we're going to make sure these people pay politically for what they did.
That they pay politically for what they did. Chris Murphy, again, showing the fire, showing the anger. And a lot of folks do have that. Specifically, Maxwell Frost is on fire. I love everything that he says, how much he pisses off all those folks around him for not going with the decorum of genocide and destruction of the country. You know, things like that. Anyway, Chris Murphy came at least with saying what he wants to do and how we're going to continue to change this. The only thing I continue to disagree with any of these folks on is talking about how the next election, we're going to make sure this happens and make sure that doesn't happen. And the next election, the next election, and the next election. We have to fully understand these guys are fascists. These guys are authoritarian. They don't want any more elections. I mean, look, I just read a story about the leadership in Miami has already pushed back their elections. It's supposed to happen at the end of this year into next year, basically giving that Republican leadership another year just because they want to. I'm not sure how much power they have to do that. Maybe it's going to get pushed back, but that was the initial report that I did see happening. When I saw the level of which they were dismissing even some of the MAGA folks who were like, whoa, I voted for bigotry light, not bigotry heavy, where it eventually comes for me as well, because it doesn't really matter because I'm nowhere near this class war that they're fighting against poor people. But even when those folks stood up and fought back, they gave them a couple middle fingers and said, you voted for us. We're done with you. So even then I was like, oh, they don't care about elections anymore. They don't care about popularity. They don't care about polling. They don't care about how any of their policies are polling and what they're doing. They don't care about how they're lying about Medicare and Medicaid and how they're taking it from all these people. They don't care because they don't expect to ever have to be held responsible for the things that they're doing. Because as people finally take to the streets, they're going to get to shooting at them and they're going to get to calling it riots like they did in Los Angeles. That was a test run. To call it a riot in Los Angeles so they can deploy the National Guard and the Marines and have this militarized state, which again is what fascists do. He already did it, bro. There's no, oh, he's predicting that they're going to unleash the military on the streets of America. We're already there. They're just going to do it on a wider scale as the next city and the next city and the next city and the next city does it too. And then how we have elections when we have a war going on in our streets with these insurgent citizens. We can't have an election. No midterm elections right now. I hope I'm wrong, but do you see where it could be going? Sorry, that was a tangent I had to go on there. Chris Murphy had normal things to say. But I want to point out, again, as they're lying about this, as this bill was getting some amendments pushed forward or proposed amendments to change it in the Senate before they then passed it, Republicans bristled at the thought that they're representing rich folks, even though the bill completely represents rich folks at the expense of everyone else. They bristled at it, but when the facts are in front of you, you can't dismiss it. I want you guys to listen to this.
Already tell that this narrative is about how we're all about the wealthy.
We can save health care for millions of Americans if we strip out tax giveaways for individuals making more than $10 million. Yes or no?
No. Those appear to have it. Those do have it.
We can help parents be able to take their kids to the doctor. We can keep seniors in their nursing homes. If we strip out tax giveaways for individuals making more than $100 million a year.
Nay.
No.
Those appear to have it.
People are going to die when 17 million people lose their health care. And for what? To give an average $250,000 tax cut to the wealthiest families. This amendment would just say no tax cuts for people making over $500 million.
All opposed, no. Then those appear to have it.
So my amendment is really simple. People making $1 billion.
All opposed, no. And those appear to have it. And those do have it. Motion is not agreed to.
Weird how that works. They bristled at the accusation that they're standing up for the rich, billionaires, and corporations, yet in every chance to not completely bend over backwards for the rich, billionaire, and corporations, they missed that opportunity. Weird how that works. Just like they don't like being called fascists, even though they're doing fascist things, but they also won't stop doing it. They just say, how dare you? And move right along and kick your ass along the way down. They don't care. They just don't care. More. As maybe Mike Johnson, who's a super Christian, wants to talk to his constituents about what stealing their Medicare and Medicaid will actually do to them. These are a bunch of regular folks that live in Louisiana, and apparently, by the way, that last video was done by, I wanted to point out because I thought it was great. Under the Desk News, they put together that compilation. It was nowhere near me. It was a great compilation by Under the Desk News. Next after this is A More Perfect Union interviewed some folks down in Louisiana talking about Mike Johnson's people down in Louisiana, as he said, they're a bunch of fake folks. Many of them are fraudulently on Medicaid system and also just don't work. They're a bunch of lazy a-holes. That's what Mike Johnson, Moses Christian Mike Johnson said, who's led by the Bible and all of his things that he does in Congress. That's who they're talking to when they point this out. I want you guys to see this.
He needs to come down on our level and live like we do. He wouldn't survive, I'm afraid.
Do you have Medicaid right now?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I was just approved a few weeks ago.
You know, there's this narrative that a lot of people on Medicaid are lazy. Do you feel that's accurate?
No, absolutely not.
No, I'm not lazy. I try to get a hustle as much as I can.
No, I think they just can't help themselves.
Well, no, because I work. I do mechanic work, and so it kind of fluctuates. I have a bunch of health problems. I can work, but eventually I'll be where I can't work.
Just got laid off.
I'm a hairstylist, so it really just depends on how much I bring in due to my clientele. I'm currently trying to get like a part-time job, like a night job, but just to put more money on the table, especially with the economy going up in prices and stuff.
Can you tell me about how it would affect you if you lost your Medicaid coverage?
Oh, Lord, I would have absolutely teetotally nothing. I would not be able to live, period. I wouldn't even be able to eat.
It would affect me real bad because I can't support myself.
It'd be a very big impact because that's all we got right now.
I have some possibly terminal illnesses, and I've had to postpone it waiting for Medicaid. And I'm sitting here literally just trying to survive.
I wouldn't have no coverage at all. My grandchildren wouldn't have any coverage. My daughter wouldn't have any coverage. And we can't just go to the doctor as needed.
I'm curious if you could say something to Representative Johnson about cutting Medicaid, what you might say to him.
Well, Speaker Johnson, I can only say this. If you ain't had the shoes on your feet to see what it feels to be like under these conditions, then you won't never know it. Come out here and stay a little while.
Part of that bill would also give tax breaks to the richest 5%. So billionaires would pay less in taxes. How do you feel about that?
It's basically let's keep the rich rich and the poor poor. They have the money to pay for it. So why would you make them pay less?
They're going to stay a billionaire, and then we still going to be poor.
It's just the constituents talking to him, who again he dismissed and told his fellow colleagues to not go to those town halls and talk to them because they must be fake paid agitators. Remember that when you vote, because I don't know how many of them voted for him, but I know enough of them voted for him that he's in office. Just remember what he says to you in response. But you know what? As I pointed out earlier, it's probably a little too late for that. You've already sold your soul to the guy, and he's taking it. He's already got it. Ironically, the religious guy did. This is what Democrats are doing. This is half of the anger that just comes from this type of stuff. This is what Democrats are doing. Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats, strong, powerful voice. You guys ready to be really mad? Oh, did I do that same one? Hopefully not. It was. Hold on. Hakeem Jeffries did a walk-off session. I didn't get the right video up. Maybe I'll throw it in later. But Hakeem Jeffries, his response to that whole thing, his response to what these constituents are probably saying, his response to this bill as they were fighting back for it with rhetoric of talking about the next election, he throws flamethrowers by saying they should be ashamed of themselves. That's what Hakeem Jeffries was doing. They should be ashamed of themselves. I'm dropping the mic and I'm gonna walk off like I did something. Please get these losers away from leadership. But they complain about how Democrats are way too tough on Republicans. Oh, they call it way too many names. That's why you lost. You may be lost because you never fought, because you're on the point of being Republican light. So you can just facilitate this madness and then hope maybe you can get some positions of power in the next election after you watch them destroy the country. That's the plan for Democratic leadership. Well, we're going to let them destroy the entire country because, you know, by then, constituents and voters are going to be so upset that we sat back and watched them destroy things and did nothing about it. Didn't even talk much about it except say, shame on you. How could you do such a thing? That's Hakeem Jeffries' point of view. In fact, I want to show you this stupid ass picture of Hakeem Jeffries that he posted on his Instagram, I think. Look at this guy. They took a picture and he said something like, we're going to continue to fight this in Congress. Bro, please. I'm gonna take my Louisville Slugger and then sit it back in this corner and continue to kiss their ass and say, shame on you. That's the fight. This guy is the fight, bro. So as you, again, people's lives are in danger. People's lives are destroyed. This is the Democratic fight for it. That's the plan. To hold up baseball bats and say shame on you. There's one last guy before I get to the last story that really annoyed the hell out of me. Everyone loved them some John Fetterman. You guys remember John Fetterman? The guy that was defended by so many Democratic voters because he was getting attacked by these conservatives for being too sloppy and messy, and he doesn't really wear a suit. Oh, and he had that stroke, and he had his issues with speaking again. How can someone work in this fashion? He's been completely off the rails. We know his stance has been on the genocide in Gaza. We know where his stance has been there. But how about his stance on where this vote had been going? Because he was really annoyed. He was upset. Democratic Senator John Fetterman was so upset, but he was upset for the wrong damn reasons. Maybe you can figure out why.
Did you get any clues on the floor about what time this might wrap?
Oh my God! I just want to go home. I've already I've missed our entire trip to the beach. My family's going to be back before we on that. So and again, I'm going to vote no. There's no drama. You know, the votes are going to go. In fact, the only interesting votes are going to be on the margin, whether that's Collins or Johnson and those. But all the Democrats, we all know how that's going to go. And I don't think it's really helpful to put people here till when some ungodly hour. And again,
Fetterman wants to go to the beach. His family went to the beach, and they're going to be back home before me. I can't believe it. I missed the sun because my job is to do something. Sure, he voted against it. But what he wanted to do is, why are we still talking about it? We already know that we're not going to do anything. We already know that the Republicans are going to do what they're going to do. Why should I talk about what the Republicans are doing? Why should I talk about the destruction of the country? Why am I not upset about selling out my constituents with absolutely no care for what they're upset about and what's going to happen to them? Why am I not out every day talking about this? Why am I not in the damn streets talking about it, representing my people? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many TV hits he's done on this or how much he's tried to tell people what's going on. But at this point, he just wants to go to the beach. I have one more story to talk about, you guys. And it's a little bit longer. You know what, you guys, we might go over. Sorry, John Iderola. Actually, maybe sorry to me because you guys will probably take off to go check out John's show. But this last story is about what's happening. One of the big results, the offshoot things that's going to continue to get paid for by this bill that Lisa Murkowski, as we pointed out, helped pass, and as now back in the Senate, back in the House, then where Republicans can, I guess, screw it up some more. They didn't like the version, by the way. Republicans in the House said they don't like the version that the Senate sent back because it costs even more. It has other issues about it that they weren't a part of. Maybe there's certain pet projects that they were upset were taken out or maybe minimized in the Senate version. Either way, there's hundreds and hundreds of pages. And I don't hear any of them complaining about how are you supposed to pass legislation? There's so many pages. Big part of the thing in those pages is to pay for things like this. That bill that just left the Senate has all these pages in it to pay for things like this.
Very soon, this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation. This is an amazing thing that they've done here.
But listen, people don't have to come here. If they self-deport and go home, they can come back legally. We will let them come back legally.
And there is a lot of self-deportation.
Yes, but if you wait and we bring you to this facility, you don't ever get to come back to America.
people get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide.
We have a lot of bodyguards and a lot of cops that are in the form of alligators. You don't have to pay them so much. But I wouldn't want to run through the Everglades for long.
Holding immigrants in a detention camp in the middle of the Florida summer, in the middle of the Everglades swamp, in the middle of hurricane season, in a bunch of tents with no adequate infrastructure or running water. It's just horrific.
Alligator Alcatraz. I mean, you know, it's one of those things that they were talking about during the campaign as well. He wants to open up Alcatraz. Maybe that was right afterwards. He wants to expand prisons. He wants to continue the cruelty of things like this. So they built this rickety place in like a week or so. Threw it up together in the Florida Everglades with the help of Ron DeSantis. We're going to get to him in a second. They threw up the Alligator Alcatraz and threw all this merch, as you saw, and AI pictures of alligators with ice hats on because that's so cool and so funny. The whole point of this is the cruelty. And by the way, that whole point when Chrissy Noem was standing there inside of that this concentration camp that we just built with your money, that they're asking for billions more to do more of this. She said, if people could self-deport, they could just come back and do it the legal way. So when they say things like that, and then you actually believe it, pay attention to the reality where people who are doing it right, and then walk into the immigration hearings doing it right, get taken up, snatched away, and deported, because that's how they're working. Because that's their approach to these things. They want to send people here so they can continue to make money off it because people have money involved in this. One of those people that has money involved in this, his name is Stephen Miller. He's an effing Nazi, and he goes on TV every time to show you guys how much of an effing Nazi he is. He wants much more of this.
Want to go to every Republican state. Now, of course, in a sane country, Democrats would do it too, but they love the illegals. They hate the Americans. We want every governor of a red state, and if you're watching tonight, pick up the phone, call DHS, work with us to build facilities in your state so that we can get the illegals out, we can get the criminals out. And also, very importantly, Laura, we need Congress to pass the big, beautiful bill, which contains the funding that ICE desperately needs to carry out the mass deportation agenda.
Now, we reach out to other states, Stephen, and a lot of them are open to helping. Alaska told us that we don't have alligators, but we have lots of bears. However, they aren't aware of any plans for an Alaska version of bear. I said Bear Alcatraz. So, Stephen, there's good news there.
Bear Alcatraz, you know, I mean, because Lisa Murkowski signed on to it. He wants more of these in only red states. I'm trying to figure out, remember the whole argument about how Democrats are so divisive and they're dividing the country, but these guys talk about red states all the time and how they're going to get the right legislation, even though they siphon money off of the rest of the country, especially those big blue states and cities that they dog out all the time, you know, because they're welfare queens. Those states to continue to build things like this trash facility. By the way, I want to point out something that happened at it. Krista Webb pointed this out on Twitter. This is what's happened, I think, after day one of this trash facility. Just a little bit of light rain in Florida, in the Everglades, and it swept into the front damn door, right where they're trying to do their whole press conference with the American flags and everything standing behind them. So this place, in the middle of hurricane season, as that activist pointed out at the end of that Al Jazeera video, they're going to plan on putting thousands of people in these facilities, and they said it's so air conditioned, but it's already flooding from some light rain down in Florida. I mean, as long as it doesn't rain again in Florida, I think they'll be okay, but they don't give a damn. So this concentration camp that's rickety and falling apart because they threw it together in 8 days, which they were calling impressive. We'll find out how impressive it is as the flooding starts happening and the disaster goes on, and they kind of don't give a damn about these folks' lives. We'll see where it goes next. It might be part of the plan. Just leave a hole open and so we can escape ourselves. And we're surrounded by all this wildlife that we also don't give a damn about. Because, you know, alligators want to hang out and wait to eat people that are trying to get to freedom, because that's what alligators' lives are supposed to be about. These losers, man, it's crazy. So the place is rickety, it's falling apart, and the way that they're going to make sure that they rush people through the system, because that's really the main plan, to follow that Nazi's approach. Stephen Miller there, we saw a couple seconds ago, in order to follow his quotas for getting as many people out as possible, all those violent criminals that they still can't find, but they're calling everyone a MS-13 gang member and drug dealer and murderer and rapist. You know, the 87-year-old lady that they took off the streets, you know, people like that. This is the way they're going to make sure it happens. Ron DeSantis is standing next to Donald Trump, who completely took everything from him, made him look like an absolute a-hole. But he's standing next to him and kissing his ass. And he's going to change things in his state to make sure he continues to drop to a knee and kiss his left ass cheek.
We're offering up our National Guard and other folks in Florida to be deputized to be immigration judges. We're working with the Department of Justice for the approvals. I'm sure Pam will approve. But then I'll have a National Guard judge advocate here. Someone has a notice to appear. Biden would tell them to come back in 3 years and appear. Now you'll be able to appear in like a day or two. So they're not going to be detained, hopefully, for all that long. We'll have people here in this facility that can make, it's a bureaucracy. The president's got to deal with the bureaucracy. Now, that Supreme Court ruling was good because that's going to allow him to be able to exercise Article 2 the way founders intended. But you still have bureaucracy. So we want to cut through that so that we have an efficient operation between Florida and DHS to get the removal of these illegals done.
They're going to hurry up the process and turn National Guard members into immigration judges. Just turn them into immigration judges. Who knows what their background is? Who knows if they have any legal authority to do something like this? Who cares? It's a dictatorship. These are fascists. Who cares about processes? They've got this lady, Pam Bondi at DOJ, that he said, and I'm sure the DOJ is going to approve it. All I have to do is say, yeah, Donald Trump wants it. That same lady who wouldn't answer during her confirmation hearings, whether or not she would just follow Trump's orders blindly. I mean, I really can't say that. What I'm going to do is stand for the rule of law. So as she changes the rule of law and allows Ron DeSantis to shift over National Guard members into immigration judges so they can rush through this process and disappear people to wherever the hell they want. Of course, with the help of the Supreme Court, who gave them this third country option to send people to as well. It's good old America, right? Even as they send off American citizens, because they kind of just don't care who they get rid of and call them criminals and rapists and drug dealers. But Ron DeSantis is going to help them out. Former military guy. And the way that they've scared enough people into doing this type of stuff is they tell these boogeyman stories. Oh, it's the worst thing ever. Did you know what they did? Here, God, I can't stand her. Kristi Noem. Let's see if this works. Kristi Noem was giving us some horror stories about what it is that these bad guys are doing. Remember, Donald Trump went down the escalator talking about rapists, drug dealers, and murderers. Remember that? It's expanded. Because in case you guys aren't afraid enough, in case you guys aren't shaking in your boots like some toddlers waiting for the boogeyman to come out from under the bed, Kristi Noem has another story.
Kind of deranged. The other day I was talking to some marshals that have been partnering with ICE. They said that they had detained a cannibal and put him on a plane to take him home. And while they had him in his seat, he started to eat himself. And they had to get him off and get him medical attention. These are the kind of deranged individuals that are on our streets in America that we're trying. The other day I was talking.
These are deranged individuals. We took up a pic. I talked to some random ICE guy. I'm not going to give any names or any kind of news stories about it, but we took this guy off the street and he's a cannibal. We put him in the back seat. Bro, he started eating his chest. Isn't it crazy? That's crazy. Actually, you know what? It is Kristi Noem. It is crazy. And when she got a chance to talk about it again, she's still saying that's. I've almost cussed like 6 times today. She almost said that stupid mess. Listen to her.
Violent criminal. In fact, President Trump, since he's been in office, has removed almost 600 known and suspected terrorists, thousands of violent criminals, individuals that are murderers and rapists and drug traffickers, human traffickers. And I talked today about one of the horrific instances of our individuals, our law enforcement officers, having to put hands on individuals that were even cannibals and removing them from our country. These are deranged individuals that other countries released out of their prisons, out of their mental institutions, and sent them to America to roam on our streets and perpetuate violence against our citizens. President Trump is just trying to follow through on what he promised the American people, and that's to get the worst of this worst out of this country so that they can raise their children in safety and apply the law equally to everyone, bring justice back to America, secure our border, but also get these dangerous criminals out. And I'm just so proud of him. This facility down in Florida is what I think should be the model for every single state. Go out there and help us partner to provide an opportunity to detain these individuals, to process them under due process, and get them out of our country as fast as possible. These kind of partnerships can happen everywhere. We just need governors and leaders to step up and do their jobs.
So as you can see, the whole purpose was to sell this facility. And in order to sell this facility, you have to continue telling that propaganda BS story about some cannibal that started eating himself because, you know, what's happened is all these countries have unleashed their attacks on America and sent their violent criminals to our shores to do this to us. That's been the plan from the beginning. I can't believe they did that. I mean, because America has no violent, white, cisgendered Christian people who assault young children on a regular basis. We've seen stats on who the biggest numbers of these types of things are while they demonize trans and LGBTQ folks. While they do all that, the real criminals that are happening and running around the streets doing these things, you know, the couple thousand that Donald Trump released from January 6th terrorism that they pulled off. Remember that? Those folks that, you know, they're unleashing other violent criminals onto our streets, and we have to make sure these cannibals, these effing cannibals, they were eating the dogs and the cats during the campaign. Now they're eating themselves. That's this story that they decided to tell, folks. I know I'm about to go over. I know we only have 2 minutes until damage report comes on, but you guys, I got a couple quick, short ones to talk about because, again, this is where Trump is gone with this, right? It's these illegals coming in, and we have to get rid of them because they're now eating themselves. Until it's those Americans that Donald Trump wants to get rid of, the ones that probably push back against his authoritarianism like a fascist would. Listen to him. Don't listen to me. Listen to him.
Like to say, you know, a little controversial, but I couldn't care less. We have a lot of bad criminals that came into this country, and they came in stupidly. It was an unforced error. It was an incompetent president that allowed it to happen. It was an auto pen maybe that allowed it to happen, and it did happen. But we also have a lot of bad people that have been here for a long time. People that whack people over the head with a baseball bat from behind when they're not looking and kill them. People that knife you when you're walking down the street. They're not new to our country. They're old to our country. Many of them were born in our country. I think we ought to get them the hell out of here too. You want to know the truth. So maybe that'll be the next job that we'll work on together. But I think getting them out, you know, we forget about them. We had some bad accidents in New York, and they're not accidents.
So all those folks with TDR during the campaign that said that Donald Trump is going to come for American citizens next. The reasons why those folks with TDR said that is because this guy named Donald Trump said he's coming for American citizens next during the campaign. Maybe it was right when he got elected, but I'm pretty sure it was during the campaign. The tail end of it. But now that he's in office and he's saying, by the way, people who hit people on the back of the head with baseball bats, we're going to send them away too. Where are you going to send them to? Just made up countries or those concentration camps and those CCOT type of prisons that you've made arrangements with other countries with more of our taxpayer money to pay foreign prisons to take in Americans, kind of like a fascist would. They can be offended by the term, but I'm more offended by the actions of fascism than they are by the term of being called exactly what they are. Please, it's just so simple. Just stop with the following of this madness. He's telling you what he wants to do, but until it happens and knocks on your front door, who cares? Who cares? And when you're there, this is the last one from this, you guys. Once you're there, once you're sitting in their prisons and you're one of the bad guys because they told you that you are, say you die. Maybe your 75-year-old grandfather or your father dies there in prison and he ain't done nothing wrong. You know what Tom Homan, the border czar, the mass deportation czar is going to do? You know what he's going to do now? He's going to not give a hot damn about your life, you know, because you're dispensable, because he's a white supremacist. Watch this.
reports of a 75-year-old Cuban national who died in ICE custody. He had lived in the United States for 60 years. He was being held in ICE detention in Florida. Is there anything you can tell us about that? There's still not a lot of information, how he died.
I'm unaware of that. I'm not aware of that. I mean, people die in ICE custody. People die in county jail. People die in state prisons. I mean, if you look at, when I was ICE director and we drilled down that, the question should be how many lives does ICE save? Because when they go in detention, we find many with diseases and stuff that we deal with right away to prevent that. So I'm not aware of that specific case, but I'll say this. People can argue with me all they want, but the facts are the facts.
Who cares? Who cares? People die in prison all the time. People die on the streets all the time. People just die. And if we've illegally arrested and imprisoned someone and they die in our custody, who cares? Who cares? Isn't that weird? How his life means nothing, but when the United Healthcare CEO was murdered, biggest news. I can't believe they would do this to an important life. But our entire system, by the way, when people talked about systemic racism and the system coming after certain people, this guy represents the system that comes after certain people. That's just how that works. Oh, and when someone then is fed up, maybe their body's falling apart. Maybe they've been screwed over so many times by that same system that was promised to not do the exact thing that screwed them over. Maybe their money that paid to help screw up their life, they had it up to here and they were fed up and they went and took these kinds of matters in their own hands. They met violence with violence, because we're taught that in this country. Grab your gun, Second Amendment rights, go up against this authoritative government. Remember all that talk? And when someone finally does that in their own way, it's the biggest problem in the country. And this guy just told you, who cares about your life if we sweep you up off the street, take you into some kind of detention center, imprison you, don't let anybody know where you are. And if you die, you die. Two big middle fingers. But that's not shameful. That's not un-American. That's not evil. That's what the American people voted for. That's what they want. They want the uprising. They want the fight back in the streets. That's why he's positioning his military with Pete Hegseth in charge of it, to do his bidding, to then try and go quell the violence that they've started. It's not going to start. It has started, and it's been continuous and long lasting. They plan to keep this up. That's what a militarized state is. For you guys that still hung around, I know you guys went over to the damage report. There was one other video I'm gonna do separately. It's just this one guy telling his story. Since we were talking about, I know I'm over. If you guys want to stay, you can stay, but this is gonna go up later as well too. There was a man that told his story of his encounter with deportation agents. And since we just talked about Donald Trump and how he wants to send off American citizens next, because he was trolling when he said it before, but now that he's trying to make it become policy, who cares, right? One of those instances where the people who may think, if you're an American citizen and you're not doing anything wrong, if you have documentation, which you don't have to have for people who want to identify themselves, side note, but if you have all that together, you'll be fine. There's no reason for them to deport you just based off of what you look like, because they don't do that. This is the American government in charge. This is Donald Trump's administration in charge. They don't do anything unfairly or biased or racist or bigoted. They don't do anything like that. They only ran on all of that. They don't actually do those things. I want to show you what they actually do. This young man told his story of being hemmed up by ICE agents and what they did to him. And I want you guys to see how much he shook and understand and ask yourself, if this happened to you or looking at who he is, would you ever trust any of these positions of authority again? Or would you have your guard up at all times? Watch this story.
So I'm here with my nephew, Adriel Lorenzo, who was born here, U.S. citizen, born in the United States, in Brooklyn, New York. In fact, I was behind the ambulance when my sister was going to give birth with him at Long Island College Hospital in downtown Brooklyn. Today, this morning, on his way from work, a U.S. citizen, and this is happening, people, pay attention. A U.S. citizen was stopped by ICE and harassed. 8 officers surrounded him. asked him if he had a fake ID when he presented his state ID and his driver's license. They cut up illegally his legal state ID and asked him if it was a fake driver's license. They detained him unlawfully without probable cause, just getting out of his car, coming off from work, working with children that he works with, going into 7-Eleven. I'll let him tell you how he feels. Adriel, how did you feel at that time? What power did you think you had?
Well, you don't have no power. You can't defend yourself. Everything going around with them talking about you're powerless when there's people surrounding you and they're saying that they can shoot you down and all they will give you is your remains to your family. It makes you scared. You can't say nothing. If you curse the cops out, they can take you down. They said that my documents were fake. They asked for a green card. They asked me many times where I was from, what's my ethnicity. It was like it was racial profiling. I got stopped for absolutely no reason. I did nothing. When I was there, you feel scared. You feel hopeless. You don't have your phone. You can't call nobody. You don't have your wallet. They took both of my identifications, cut it up. They cut my ID up. They told me my driver's license was fake. And my driver's license was just renewed and issued about a month ago. So I have no idea. Inside of Florida, the back of Florida's IDs have a little picture to determine that your ID is real or if it's fake. For them to, what happened was just, it's a lot. So
How long did they hold?
About 35 to 40 minutes.
What happened when they released you?
They basically said that you need to carry all your documents to have your social security card, and I need to be more careful going forward and not to be carrying two identifications.
What is it illegal to carry two identifications?
Yes, two identification cards. That's what they said.
Did they told you it was illegal?
They said it was illegal.
It is not. It is not. I have my passport card and I have my driver's license.
But I had my
There's no statute. That's okay. There's no statute that says that it's illegal in the state of Florida or any place that I know in the U.S. to carry multiple IDs. In fact, it's better to carry more than that's sufficient.
Why did they cut out my ID?
That's a great question. We need to find out. Did you have the names? Did anybody call any of them by names? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay. All right. I understand. What happened when you got in the car? What happened when you got back in the car? How did you feel? What did you do?
I panicked and I called my uncle, and I cried for a while, and I was just scared to even drive home because imagine you getting stopped again. There's ICE checkpoints all over. They're checking random cars. They're stopping people because they have temporary tags in their cars because of things.
Did you have temporary tags?
No. I had a Florida tag, and the car is actually registered to my mom.
I know.
She's an American citizen as well.
Right.
So,
folks, I'm just sharing the story with you because it's important that people know exactly what's going on here. U.S. citizens, law-abiding U.S. citizens who were being stopped without any probable cause, no infraction, there wasn't a traffic violation, it's simply profiling. They stopped a U.S. citizen born in Brooklyn, New York, and I can testify. My name is Dr. Alberto Alexander. I was there when he was born in Long Island College Hospital. To my sister, this is what's happening. We have to let people know because this is coming into a police state and we are all under siege.
So that guy was born in Brooklyn, New York. That was his uncle that was narrating and recording there. I assume the same uncle that he called before he got back in his car and was afraid to drive and cried. So this guy is one of the people that they're calling a drug dealer, a rapist, a murderer, a violent criminal. They have to sweep up off the streets. This is the guy that provided them with 2 pieces of identification and probably shouldn't have before they then destroyed those pieces of identification so they could probably claim later he had no identification on him. So therefore we had to take him in. Held this man for 35 to 45 minutes and harassed him, made him feel like he had 0 rights, is what he said. They make you feel like you don't have any control over your life. They threatened his life. If you do this, that, or the third, they can kill you. They come out with long war-style guns. They come up and tell you what you're going to do with your life as a free American citizen living here, born here, because they feel they can do whatever the hell they want. This is the militarized state. This is Donald Trump's gang that has been unleashed on American streets. Have you guys seen some of these videos? I did it on a previous video as well when what they're doing in Los Angeles. Run up on people, bang on their windows, and tell them what to do. Masks on their faces and guns in front of them. Bulletproof vests and war helmets on their dumbass heads. But again, Donald Trump just told you, we're coming for who he deems criminals next. And these ICE agents deemed this guy a criminal because he's brown-skinned and didn't have temporary tags, but they're pulling over other people for temporary tags because that's what they do. Their job is not to enforce the law. Their job is to break the law in favor of this Nazi regime's objectives. This aspect headed by Tom Homan and Stephen Miller to have this quota of sending anybody that they don't like because they're too brown or maybe too poor the hell out of this country to where who knows? And if they have the right documentation, who cares? We're Nazis. We do this. We send people away for living, existing, and driving and going to work and looking for work. So again, don't be surprised when or if they decide to continue this march toward full-on authoritarianism where you have no rights, you have no means to purchase anything, prices continue to go up as they take away your health care and you die from those types of issues that you pay for. So people who pay for this health care will die because they want to send more people out of the country because they're huge, bigoted racists with very, very small souls. They're the most inferior people in the world. That's why they have to do all this pumping up to go after other people who have normalcy and culture and lives. These folks don't have one. That old orange piece of garbage shuffling around in the White House is the main one, but they're using him for this entire apparatus because he's backed by a whole bunch of other authoritarian Nazis. It's just who they are. Thanks, you guys. I've been on now for over an hour. I think I made up for the amount of time that I was late on, you guys, but I just want to relay that story. That damn near broke my heart, man. Imagine, I assume he's in his 20s. Looks like he's in his 20s. And that uncle there was filming it because he probably lost his entire mind. And in this country, where they tell you to grab your guns and go after the authoritarian regime when they come knocking at your door, they're knocking at your door right now. So people are going to start pulling those out. Not telling them to. I'm just telling you what's going to go on in this country. That's what we've been indoctrinated with. That's why we're flooded with all these damn guns. That's the next step, and they expect that. So they've been prepping everybody for. Grab close to tight and hold on to your guns. And if you're an authoritarian with us, join us in oppressing the people. And the people who actually think, yo, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to fight back against this. That's what they taught us since I was 2 years old. You get shot in the face. That's America. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Kizef. See you guys over at Damage Report, I suppose. Who all of you guys that hung around. What's up, Ma? I see Mom's there finally. Sorry, I'm in a bad mood now. Again, anybody who missed that, we'll put it up later. Let folks know. If you guys like what we're doing here, please subscribe, like, share. You guys know the stream. Share it. Let people know what we're doing. Post it if you like what we're doing. Take a couple of clips. Let people know. Put it on your Instagrams or your, I don't know, you can put on X if you want. And put on those other social medias. Spread that word, man. I like to talk in a natural state like this. It's a lot more ripe for a little bit more cussing, which I avoided today, but still. Thanks, you guys. I'm going to go. We'll see these up in a minute. Thanks.